In this video, I'll be going over the top 10 changes and improvements that Niantic needs to make with Pokémon GO. For the past several years, Pokémon GO has seen its many ups and downs. The game has seen a ton of changes along the way, and it is a completely different game than most would remember. However, I would say that Pokémon GO is far from perfect, and some notable changes need to be made in order to make it a much better experience. Whether it's with the GO Battle League, rating, or premium items, there are plenty of things Niantic could do to improve these features. The way that I will approach this video will be to list much needed improvements and changes within various aspects of Pokémon GO, in no particular order. Hopefully, Niantic will take this feedback and make the steps in the right direction for this game. Right, so let's get right into it. Let's start off with the GO Battle League. I believe this game mode has been in desperate need of improvements for a very long time. I think the biggest challenge Niantic has when it comes to PvP is accessibility. Much of the GO Battle League is not something just about any player can jump into, whether it be the massive Stardust and candy cost, or just simply the fact that not every legendary Pokemon is available at any given time. Both the Ultra League and Master League are typically periods where most players don't even bother. I think the biggest change that could help with this problem is to have the Great League be a part of the entire season, as it is the most accessible league in the GO Battle League. You don't need to be a certain level, you don't need a massive collection of legendaries, you just need a decent team of Pokemon that don't even need to be maxed out. Now, I know seasoned battlers will argue that there are some merits behind both the Ultra League and Master League, and having the Great League last all season long will essentially kill off the other leagues. Well, the simplest solution to that is to put limitations on Great League battles, and balance the rating system where the other leagues will be preferable to the most competitive players. For example, while the Ultra League is in rotation, you can earn more rating points for winning in the Ultra League instead of the Great League, or you have access to better rewards. Something like this would not only fix the accessibility issue, but it could also change up the dynamic for the GO Battle League itself. It could be a great way to keep the game mode competitive, as most players will not take long breaks because they don't like specific leagues, and I am most certain more players would be interested in it. But of course, accessibility is not the only issue with the GO Battle League. I also think Niantic needs to fix the lags and server problems with this game mode. I think it goes without question that lag and technical issues have plagued the GO Battle League pretty much since the beginning. While Niantic has made several attempts to stabilize PvP gameplay, it just seems like they have a long way to go, and they've made no progress. I do think that if they want more players to engage with the GO Battle League, they need to make it actually playable for these players. I don't know if this would require a drastic change to the whole system, but something needs to be done about it. It's gotten so bad over the years that it has become somewhat of a meme at this point. Not a lot of players take the game mode seriously, and more players don't even bother trying to be among the best because of the frustrations these technical issues can cause. I do think the GO Battle League will ensure Pokemon GO's longevity, but only if it is in a polished state. Niantic should dedicate as much resources as they can to fix it, otherwise it could be dead in the water really soon. Right, so the next area of the game that I would like to see changed involves a more recent problem that players have had to deal with. I think Niantic needs to give players much better premium bundle boxes in the Pokéshop. It is a really bad sign for the game when the developers are essentially discouraging their player base from spending money on the game. With the recent decline of bundle box value, it really feels like Niantic doesn't want players to spend any of their Pokécoins. A lot of people, including myself, have been holding off on spending any Pokécoins until a better Ultra or Adventure box hits the stores. I think Niantic is missing out on a ton of revenue right now because of the lack of any good premium boxes. They don't even have to go back to giving us bundle boxes that are as good as they used to be, but they should at least be worth buying to the average player. As of right now, they haven't done that in a while. If they want players interested in their content, then the best way to do that is to get players playing their content. But because there hasn't been any good bundle boxes, players have not been hatching eggs, raiding, or just in general, playing the game. This is a critical change that Niantic needs to make, and they need to make it as soon as possible. Next, let's talk about in-game events, because this is a part of the game that I believe requires a lot of changes. Ever since they were introduced, in-game events have been a core aspect of Pokemon GO's gameplay. They add variety to the wild spawns, they are great ways to introduce new Pokemon and new shinies, and they can create some of the most memorable experiences. The problem is that these events have started to become stale and a bit overdone. I would like to see less in-game events, but have them be much higher quality. I also think they should bring back event bonuses like Double Stardust or Double Experience. This is something that has been lacking from in-game events for a while, and it definitely contributes to the decline of excitement behind these events. I also think the frequency of lower quality in-game events have caused a sense of event fatigue within the Pokemon GO community. Since these events are just vehicles for introducing new shinies or new Pokemon, there's typically a lot of pressure for players to play as hard as possible, even if the event is uninteresting. I think Niantic should remedy this, and they can do that by having less events but at higher quality. This leads me to the next change I would like to see with Pokemon GO, and that is with wild spawns. A sentiment that's been lost over the years is that excitement you feel when you come across a super rare Pokemon in the wild. I found that this tends to happen more often when there are no in-game events. However, I think Niantic could lean into this more, regardless if there is an event or not. A common complaint you hear when it comes to wild spawns is that there are always the same trash Pokemon spawning in the wild. This is even more apparent whenever there is an in-game event, as certain event wild spawns tend to take over. What would be really good for the game would be to add much more variety. There are hundreds of species of Pokemon now in the game, and it doesn't make sense to fully utilize every one of them. For every biome and weather boost, there should be a plethora of various spawns that players could encounter. This would not only add more variety to the gameplay, but it would certainly help most areas of the game where a diverse collection is preferred. This sort of leads me to the next thing in the game where I would love to see changes, and that is the Daily Adventure Incense. This feature was very recently introduced, and it did generate a bit of buzz initially because it was your only way to get the Galarian legendary birds. However, not much has been done with it ever since it was released. It's an incredibly buggy feature, with a lot of players not getting any spawns from it even though they fulfill the walking requirements. There's just a lot of confusion around how this item works overall, and I think Niantic should improve it so that more players are motivated to use it every day. I think it would be cool if you had a super low chance to see legendaries other than the Galarian birds. How cool would it be if it allowed you to catch PvP IV Registeels or Cresselias? It would most certainly generate a ton of excitement. I know this next idea would be controversial, but how about adding a premium item that would enhance the Daily Adventure Incense by, let's say, boosting the rarity of the Pokemon that spawn from it? In a way, it would be a pay-to-win mechanic, but I do think Niantic could capitalize on an already good feature by giving that option to players who are willing to spend for it. It might also make the item more worthwhile for some players. I do think there's a lot of potential with this item, but Niantic needs to continue developing it in order for it to flourish. Next up, let's talk about gym battles, which I believe is the one feature that has needed a revamp the most. Gym battling has been a part of the game since the beginning, yet I would argue and say that it has been the most neglected. Honestly, gym battling is pretty fun. I think if more players engaged with it like how it used to be, it could be a very fun aspect of Pokemon GO. There's just something really fun about a turf war mechanic, and it fits right in with a game that is all about outdoor play. But the problem is that Niantic has not developed this feature for a long time, and it's kind of fallen by the wayside. What I would like to see is a revamp of the gym battling system, one that is much more rewarding for the effort put into it aside from just a free daily batch of Pokécoins. It would be so cool to have different mechanics and bonuses players could enjoy if their team controls a certain amount of gyms in an area. Just imagine, you can have experience or Stardust bonuses, better and unique spawns, or boosted damage in raids if your team controls more gyms in a given area. In order to get the best out of your gameplay, you will need to work hard to take over as many gyms as you can. This could lead to some very interesting community play, as certain teams could coordinate to take over towns like they used to. Nowadays, there just isn't any incentive to hold gyms and take over towns, aside from your free daily Pokécoins. There are, of course, some major drawbacks to adding mechanics like this. One thing that most players probably don't miss from back in the day is the toxicity and griefing that was rampant. I would like to see some new mechanics and incentives to gym battling at the very least. They don't have to go the turf war route, but they could add more rewards to holding gyms so that more players would be active with them. I think at the very least, it would benefit the game overall. Okay, speaking of gym battles, this leads me to the next change or improvement that I would like to see come to Pokemon GO, and that is the addition of more methods for getting free Pokécoins. This is something Niantic dabbled with a couple years ago, but the community did not favor their approach. While the idea of adding different methods for getting free Pokécoins was welcomed by the community, the nerfing of Pokécoins from gym battles was not. I think if Niantic were to revisit this, it would do wonders for the Pokemon GO community. Doing gym battles for Pokécoins is fine, but there are plenty of communities that don't have access to a ton of gyms. Giving these lower population communities different methods for obtaining their free daily Pokécoins would only be beneficial for the game, and it's something Niantic should try out once again. This time, I would much rather they listen to community feedback rather than just giving up on it when the feedback is mostly negative. Hopefully, this is something we could see in the future. Alright, next up, let's talk about what Niantic should change with Community Days. The history of this monthly event has had some serious ups and downs over the past few years. It was once a staple of Pokemon GO, yet Niantic made plenty of questionable decisions. They decreased the duration of Community Days down from 6 hours to 3, and the list of featured Pokemon have not been stellar compared to previous years. I think the reduced duration was a bit of a misstep. Locking Community Days to 3 hours vastly lowers the amount of accessibility for most players, as the 6 hours was a lot more flexible. I'm not suggesting they go back to the 6-hour duration, but they should offer players more choices. I like the idea of players being able to choose which 3-hour time slot they would like to utilize for Community Days. Something like that would vastly improve the experience for the community as a whole. I also think their solution to this problem, where they would extend Community Day spawns through 4-star raids, is not living up to its potential at the moment. If they want to continue this route, then they should expand on it so that it is a better middle ground. Have the spawns last for an hour as opposed to 30 minutes, and require less trainers in order to defeat those raids. Whatever they do, I think they need to improve Community Days as a whole, because these landmark events really lost their luster this year with all the downgrades. This leads me to the final change that I would like to see Niantic make to Pokemon GO. I think this area of the game needs some vast improvements, and I think most players will agree. I would like to see either a complete overhaul or a restructuring to trading. The first thing I would change is in regards to the trade animation. Much like with what they did for egg hatching, I would like for there to be a way for you to skip the trade animation. Right now, the entire sequence takes a very long time, which makes it difficult to trade Pokemon en masse. That is the other thing I would add to trading. Allow players to trade multiple Pokemon at once. One player can select a certain number of Pokemon to trade, and the other player just needs to match that amount. I like the idea of giving players the ability to trade off Pokemon in batches, especially if they are trying to get lucky and or XL candy. Finally, I think they should increase the allowed distance for trades. It doesn't have to be the 40-kilometer bonus by default, but I think having it at around 15 to 20 kilometers would be a good middle ground. You still have to be in a somewhat nearby vicinity so that it is not exploitable, but you don't have to go out of your way to meet up with someone across town. I think if Niantic considers these changes, it would make trading Pokemon feel much better. I hope they consider it. Alright, with all that said, that's going to be it for this video. Now, I would love to know your thoughts. What is one change or improvement that you would like to see come to Pokemon GO? Share them down below in the comments and let's have a great discussion. And if you ended up enjoying this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if it's your first time here, and don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support my channel in any way, big or small, then be sure to check out the links in the description below. For all my patrons, they get a permanent spot on my in-game friends list. So if you want to interact with me in some way, like with remote raids, then do consider becoming a patron on my Patreon. But yeah, that's going to be it. I'm Count Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I will catch you all later.